Change is coming for us once more. The civil service's great works mean that by next season, Anvil itself will be transformed. The land beneath our feet will feel strange, and many of us will leave behind memories as dear as those of our own home. It is natural to grieve what we're leaving behind, but remember the lesson of the brazen mask. Every change is an ending, but is also an opportunity. To adapt, to grow, to begin again stronger than before. So this season, drink deep every joy Anvil offers, make memories worth carrying into the years ahead, and walk forward to embrace the change. For our story, like Carl's, does not end here.
Hi, I'm Matt Pennington. I run Unknown Worlds and I run Profound Decisions that created the Empire game that's kind of made all this happen. So yes, I've pulled together lots of people from the LARP community, and we've all pooled our money and bought this site to try and create a national centre for the hobby. Empire's the second game we created, and we've always wanted to own our own site, and so we've always kind of created games with that in mind, thinking that one day we'd have a permanent site, but we didn't create the game expressly for it. But we always created it with the idea one day this could be like a permanent thing. It could all be like in an actual settlement rather than tents.
And so generally what was the motivation behind buying the site?
So the motivation is that if you look at live role playing over the last 30 years, the costumes have come on enormously. We all used to LARP in mum's curtains with a hole cut in the top, and now we have these fantastic costumes. We used to have horrible weapons made out of gaffer, and they looked awful, and now they look amazing. The armour, the weapons, the costume, the props, it all looks incredible. And the one thing that's never moved in 30 years is the sites. We're still using blank, empty farmers' fields with tents in them. And I wanted to try and, the thing that will take the hobby to the next step and give it that kind of wider, bigger profile and make it more incredible would be having a site that had buildings and structures and set pieces. I want to be in a medieval tavern. I want to stand in a medieval tourney ground and have all of that be there and be physically real. So that was the kind of the dream, basically. Can we create that?
And how long have you been LARPing?
How long have I been LARPing? 28 years. That's longer than it should be. I've been just live role playing for about 28 years. I've been doing it professionally, running events professionally for about 21 years.
Oh, it's 32 years now. Yes, so I started in my late 20s and I've just retired, so there you are. And so I've known Matt for a very long time.
And you're just coordinating the meeting?
Yes, so
which was very helpful.
I like to see a meeting being run properly, and also I thought we're all here to see the site. So yes, we absolutely need to get the business done. We need to get the business done and let everybody have their say, but let's keep it narrow and all focused as well. So
why is this day significant for you?
Because it's actually on a LARP site, a permanent LARP site, and I've seen so much, like over the old way we've had to hire scout camps, and when I started LARP, we often, it was with a university LARP club, and it was in public, so out on Alderley Edge and Rivington up north, and so you always had to have somebody on point who would be there to deal with the people who are coming along and walking dogs and going, so what are you doing again? And we didn't even have the reference points of Lord of the Rings films or Game of Thrones to explain, and the production values for costumes and so on have gone up so much. So it's going to take 5 years, 10 years, but we've got a pathway now, and that's really exciting.
It is exciting.
To put a big event on for sort of 4,500 people, there's a huge amount of moving parts, and you need a lot of different people with a lot of different skills. The main skill I originally brought to it was I was a database programmer, so I was able to build the IT that we use to run everything, but that's really the wrong way to think about it. The real skill I bring is that I convince 400, 500 volunteers that they want to make this happen. And so my skill is that I'm kind of persuasive, and people listen to me and go, "Oh, that sounds great, Matt," and they sort of, they're part of their brain that would say, "Oh, this is a terrible idea." I'm good at turning that bit off and convincing everyone that this mad idea I've got is worthwhile and they should get involved. So, you know, I had people like Bill Thomas, who's working on our grandstand. He has worked on Hollywood sets. He's worked on Harry Potter movies. He's worked on Star Wars movies. But I can persuade him to come down here and build a set for us, because I can convince him that, and he's got those skills. I haven't got those skills. I haven't really got any of the skills that are needed, but I can persuade people who have got them to get involved.
Well, I did work for the Bank of England for 15 years, and I know a fair bit about governance, and I've run meetings, at actually quite sort of, yes, let's just say yes, professionally. I have been trained by the best, let's say, so I'm going to use that knowledge to, although I probably wouldn't at, like one of my professional meetings, crawl out on the floor with a cardboard things that said, "Matt, stop now." You can do it with a lot more humour in a LARP environment.
Yeah.
We were growing reasonably before COVID. We were getting sort of 5-10% bigger every year, somewhere between 5 and 10%, and it was just a nice smooth growth year on year. Then COVID happened and everything was shut for 2 years, and we were like, will we still have a business? Will we still be in operation? We genuinely didn't know. And then we came back after COVID and the floodgates opened, and we have grown 30% a year for sort of 3 years after COVID. So we're just massively bigger than we used to be, way bigger, coming up for twice the size of the events as they used to be, and all since COVID. It died off last year, but in the first couple of years after COVID it was very, very sustained. Why? I don't know. Maybe there was pent-up demand that built up during the COVID era. I think COVID made people want something that was personal, something that was interaction. We stuck everybody at home and we couldn't get out and socialise and communicate and interact and do hobbies, and I think people wanted things that were live. They wanted, we could all sit at home and watch Game of Thrones on television, but you couldn't do anything. You couldn't play football with your friends. That's part of society shut down, and I think it made people realise how much they missed it. And I think there were other structural things. Certain parts of role playing, like Critical Role, blew up during the pandemic, and that created a halo for us. It was like suddenly live role playing was bigger than ever, and there's no doubt about it. It used to be a running joke in the media. It was just, if live role playing was discussed in film or television, it was absolutely to ridicule and mock. Now, very, very different. Now it's talked about, it's become common parlance. I read like politics websites where they talk about people LARPing on a deeply serious politics kind of podcast. So it's kind of achieved that penetration, I think. Not completely yet. There's still probably 60%, 70% of people who have no idea what it is, but it's much more widely known and it's much more widely accepted. I think people are kind of open to experiences in a way they weren't 10 years ago. So,
yeah. Just to sort of bring it back to the site purchase, because as we're both architecturally trained, this idea of owning a site is very much in conversation, like owning land is very much in conversation in architectural discourse, it's because it's so expensive, and there's a lot of also conversation about this sort of alternative livelihoods, or sort of the role of the community in achieving something as grand as ownership of land. Could you just maybe talk about that, about the
yeah,
the
totally. I mean, we always wanted to own land to run the event on. We always wanted to create something that was permanent and had a home. And we watched the value of land. Every year our events got bigger, and every year the price of land would get higher, and it was always outside of our, it was just always, just out of our reach. And then we kind of came out of the pandemic and we were looking at things and looking at our ideas, and we realised that actually if we went out to the community and created a vehicle to effectively kind of crowdsource the investment, that we were confident we could do it. And we thought, oh well, we think we can raise $750,000 from the community. That was our kind of crazy ambition. And then we raised that and we were like, wow, that was amazing. And then we realised, oh, we need more land. And then we realised we needed 1.2 million from the community. And then we were like, yep, we've raised that. The entire thing has been financed basically from top to bottom by the live role-playing community, and been able to buy like this 2 million plus piece of land just out of the community's desire to see this happen and to support it, and it because it's their passion and their kind of what they're enthused about.
People really aren't investing for the dividends. People are investing because they want to be involved in creating a permanent LARP site and a legacy, something that we can pass on to LARPers in the future, something that will allow people who don't have a lot of money to hire a site to start running small games and maybe borrow the equipment, use existing infrastructure, so they have to invest less. So it's a way of bringing new people into the hobby, and meaning that people who aren't yet LARPers can join, meaning people who are just starting out in LARP can grow their ideas, and hopefully it will make it more accessible both physically. So if we have a site that's designed to make it easy for people with certain needs to LARP, but also financially, that people don't have to be affluent to run an event, because they can rent things that are already set up rather than having to buy their own set of radios, for example. Can they rent radios to use on the site for a weekend? To get this hobby to continue. So,
do you know of any other examples of land purchase of that scale by community?
There are community groups, certainly in other countries, who own land for LARP. So there's a place I've played in Sweden where they have a wooded site with permanent buildings that is owned and run by the community. There's one in Canada, for example, that we often sort of look at. I don't know of anything of this scale, and certainly not in the UK. So I think it's
outside of LARPing. Did you look to try to learn from any other kind of community groups?
So we've been interested in how other people have done it, but I don't have any direct comparisons. We've been
Me neither. So that's why I think it's so unique.
I mean, the equivalent things, I guess, are things like the Scottish Islands that have been bought out by community groups to enable lifestyles to continue there, which obviously isn't LARPing, but it's a community preserving an environment that they want to keep. But this is slightly different because this is creating a new environment from scratch. So it's going to be something really interesting to see how it works.
Very exciting.
I can see why architecture is interested, because it's about empowerment. It's about being able to create the things you want to create, and the fact that land prices are so high that it chokes off our ability to project our imagination onto the landscape. I once had a conversation with planners, and I was sort of going, oh, we want to buy this piece of land and put like a gladiatorial arena in, and they're staring at me like, you're crackpot. And I said to them, like, if I bought a piece of land with a Victorian folly on it, you would never let me knock that down in a million years. You would be like, that's a priceless part of the landscape, that can't be knocked down. But who is going to create the Victorian follies of tomorrow? Who is going to make those things happen? It's nowhere in your planning rules are there, and here are where the Victorian follies can go. And but the cost of land is the same. How is our generation going to project their imagination onto the landscape? How are we going to make these things tangible? And we, as a community, have gone, actually, we can do this. And so, I think it's going to be incredibly exciting, basically, the capacity. We just got to make it happen from here, so...
new site.
See you at the 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 next site. See you at the next site.
See you at the new site.
Hi everyone, I'm Tamika. Some of you know me as a Koba who is hopefully going to become a Stormcrow next summit. But some of you will also know me as someone who's been going around with the camera before game time at E3 and E4. So I've been sort of filming around the site, seeing how people prepare for the game, how they put their costumes on, and the kind of overall preparation of the site for the game. My fascination with LARP comes from being a teacher. I teach world building in an architectural school, and I have architectural background, and I really want to make a film about the site purchase, because it's a very unique case where a community of people comes together and brought by a visionary as well, and a group of visionaries, and they buy a site together, and now they're landowners and they're also passionate LARPers. And in beginning of November, I had an opportunity to go and film the AGM, the first shareholder meeting at the site, and film a bit of the site as well, as an excursion. And what I found particularly striking is that a lot of shareholders invest not for profit. It's very clear that a lot of people who are shareholders, they will not see the site in its final form, because it will just take a very long time for it to really to gain a sort of very final look, because things take time, planning and building, and which means that whoever has invested into the land is of course very excited and loves LARP, but what more so, they also want to create a sustainable way to continue the craft going and provide opportunity for new incomers into the game, people who also want to create their own LARP games, and provide resources for those people. And I think that sort of thinking really inspired me, because it means that it comes from a place of care and certain values that I observed in the LARP, which seemingly is a fantasy world, but it really translates into the reality. And I learned a lot from that, and I really want this story about the land purchase to become an inspiration for more people, and a certain model of how people can organize themselves and challenge the status quo of capitalism and corporations and brands and all sorts of sort of money hungry machine, which doesn't care about the sort of human factor when it comes to entertainment. And I just hope that I'm able to tell that story. I hope that I can get support from the community, mainly. If I know that the community is full of storytellers and really talented craftsmen and professionals or hobbyists, and really full of wonderful people. So let me know what you think, and let me know if I'm exaggerating how amazing the story is. I don't think I am. I think it's a really interesting, unique story that can be quite inspiring. So